So we're going to take a look at drums and drum mixing from a perspective of electronic drums. But there's a slight catch with this because I want to be able to do this exercise both in Logic Pro and Ableton Live. Now, if you're working in Ableton Live and you load something like an 808 core kit from the library, which loads an instance, as we know, of Drum Rack, what you'll notice is that Ableton will kindly for us split out every single part of the drum rack onto a separate channel, which we can expand with this little arrowy thing here, which is great. Bass drum, snare drum, etc, etc, etc. Awesome. This is great because if we want to mix our drums, say for example we want to put a compressor on the entire drum kit, we can do that, but if we want to individually change the level or EQ or other effects on individual parts, then we can do that quite easily as well. How does this work in Logic Pro? Well, let's open Logic Pro and find out. Alright, so here we are in Logic Pro, as if by magic. And what are our options in Logic Pro for drum kits? Well, there are a few. If we want a kind of acoustic sounding drum kit, we can use Drum Kit Designer, but I'm doing electronic music, so I don't want that. Then there's the mysterious drum synth, which allows us to synthesize single drum sounds. Also cool. Now, elsewhere in Logic Pro, there are other things for creating drums. We know about Ultrabeat. Ultrabeat's a good choice, although it looks terrible. It's got some nice built-in drums. Interestingly, there's also Drum Machine Designer, which sort of doesn't exist in this part here. So if we make an empty channel strip, what I can then do is load an instance of Drum Machine Designer. However, if I load an instance of Drum Machine Designer, I can't then load a drum kit into Drum Machine Designer because it only kind of enables me to load individual sounds. So what I'm going to do is go to the library and go to Drum Kit. No, hang on, Electronic Drum Kit. Yes, that's it. Somewhere there's one that says Roland TR-808, and if I load this, hurrah, we get an instance of Drum Machine Designer with loads of drum sounds in it. And then we get this wonderful individual channel arrangement. What the Drum Machine Designer actually is a whole load of individual samples on individual channels, really similar to Ableton's drum rack. However, if we look in the mixer, what we'll notice is that each and every instance of a sampler here has on it already EQs, envelope thingies, fat effects, whatever that is, sends to reverbs. There's already a mix in place. And on the main Drum Machine Designer channel, Logic has kindly put us loads of effects kind of ready to roll. This is great if you don't want to think about mixing, but I want to think about mixing. And there's an awful lot of work here to undo if I was to get to a point where I wanted to have complete control over the mix. So not great. What I'm actually going to do is demonstrate how we might use a third-party drum machine, Native Instruments battery, which is installed everywhere in Confetti, to kind of replicate a bit of both, but also kind of revise how we do multiple outputs in Logic Pro. So never mind Drum Machine Designer, let's get rid of that. Let's create an instrument here that is Native Instruments battery 4. We don't want it in stereo though. What we want to do is make an instance of battery 4 that has, this is quite important, it has 16 stereo outputs. Okay. In Battery, the normal layout here is we have a browser of different drum kits. There's loads of them, and I'm going to load in 808 multiple kit, and here we have cells with different drum sounds. And the way Native have organised this, as we can see, is we've got all our kick drums here. Snares are all yellow. Toms are all whatever that colour is, puce. Cymbals are all whatever that colour is, bluey greeniness. Because we've loaded the multiple output version of Battery, what we can now do is I'm going to command click all of my bass drums, and then right click, and I can send these to different outputs. Actually what I'm going to do is send the bass drums to 1 and 2, which they actually already are, but just for completeness, select all my snares to outputs 3 and 4. Claps are a bit like snares, aren't they? Let's send the claps to 3 and 4 as well. All the toms. I'm going to go to 5 and 6. All the cymbals and kind of maracas and stuff are going to go out to 7 and 8. Direct out 7 and 8. And let's see how this behaves. Let's play a few sounds. Bass drum, snare drum, toms. Well, hang on, they're all on the same outputs right now. So what we're going to do is open the mixer, and then down here, down on the bottom of the mixer channel strip, we can see this little plus button here. This enables us to create new sub outputs from Battery to handle all our extra outputs. It only works with multiple output instruments. So here's Battery 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Didn't need 9 and 10, did I? So now what we should have is bass drum, snare drum, and clap, cymbals, and toms. So we could break the drum kit down further if we wanted to, but now we're in a position where we can individually treat the individual parts of the drum kit and create a mix of different elements of the kit, but keep everything on one virtual instrument. So nice try, Logic Pro, but Drum Machine Designer really isn't a good substitute for Drum Rack as it stands. Perhaps there's a way of defaulting it a little more easily, but I don't know what that is. So the other advantage of using Battery is it's consistent across DAWs. So if you want to create and save a Battery drum kit in Logic Pro and then load it into Ableton Live, that will work just as well. Okay, so now we're ready to do some work around mixing in Logic and Ableton, which I'll tackle in another video.